Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel. And this is your tip of the week. And I'm going to take you through the process that I go through in selecting and matching, coordinating all of my fabrics together. So let's get started. Here is some fabric I bought many years ago, and it's got a lot of different fabric squares already stitched together in it. So sometimes you'll run across fabric like this. Now, if you needed to add a border on it or select a coordinating color, it's going to be a little difficult to choose because there's a lot going on in this fabric. There's many different colors. But the one thing that they all have in common is they're very dull and muted colors. So if you wanted to pick something as an accent fabric, let's say a border in a quilt block, or you're making a purse, you want to make specific color handles, whatever you're making. So here are some muted colors that I selected. Now, this is really a pretty color. It's a cross between this one and this one, and it goes really well with all of these colors. Now it's a print, but it's a very light print, and it has several different shades in here. So here's another one. This one is very muted, kind of goes with this one. Now, depending on your taste, they both work, but if I was going to have to pick between the two, I would select this one because this really makes all of the colors pop on this. So if you were going to make it in a pillow, you could use this as your main fabric, then either create a border or maybe some piping to really set this fabric off. Here are two pieces of fabric. They have the same print, but I don't know how well you can tell on camera, but they actually came from two different dye lots. They're not an exact match. This one is more of a blue-red. It's got a lot more blue in it, and this one has a lot more yellow in it. So let's say you bought some fabric and you wanted to go back to the fabric store and suddenly it doesn't match up. It's because it's a different dye lot. But if you were trying to coordinate your more yellow tones with blue tones, sometimes they fight with each other. And I'm going to go over that in a moment. Now here is a print, and this particular one has a lot more yellow in it than this one does, but it does match up better with this. Here is a pillow that I made with a sailboat, and all of the colors work really, really well together. And there's one thing that holds them together, and that is both of the reds are more of a blue red. Then these two blues here are the same tone of blue. All of the fabrics have white in it. The border is a little more black in it, but it does have white. So all of this works together. Now, if you selected one of your more yellow reds and you mixed it with this one, or you mixed it with this one, it'll be okay, but it doesn't pop. It doesn't bring out the richness of the blue tones in the fabric. Now here is another one. It's blue, but it has just a slight hint of yellow in it. Very, very slight. So you could use this and it'll look okay, but there's something about matching up the tones that make this pillow work together. So when you're shopping for fabric in a fabric store, whether it's Joann's or Hobby Lobby or a really high-end quilt fabric store, look for a piece of fabric that talks to you. And this one does. These big, beautiful, bold flowers really talk to me a lot. So in here you've not only got black, you've got several shades of yellow and gold, and several shades of grays, and then even the very whitest looking background has a slight gray tone to it. The reason why this fabric talks to you is because the tones all go together really well. So if you wanted to find accent fabric, you need to look for fabrics that have these colors in it. Now here's a piece that's got gray, yellow, and a grayish white. Now this fabric standing alone looks great. This one standing alone looks great. But when you put the two together, they have a battle. They're both trying to be the dominant piece. So if you wanted to use this as an accent fabric, it's not going to highlight and bring out any of the beautiful colors in here. So let's try one more. Here's a plaid, a black plaid. Now this works a lot better. So you've got the deep black, the lighter charcoal, and then you've got a gray in here. Well, it matches all of this and it works pretty well. If this is all you could find, I would say this is a good choice. Let me show you one more. So here's this. Now this one I thought worked the best. It only had two colors fighting with it in here. It didn't have too much going on. It's almost like it's one-tone fabric with just little dots in it. So let me show you what I made out of it. This is an apron. Now some of you have probably seen me wear it in some of my tutorials. I only put a little bit of the fabric here. I put a little bit of the black and white up here, and then the largest portion of the apron is the black and white. And then I cut out dark one-color fabric to make the bias tape to go around the edges. Now this really works very well together. I love this fabric. I love my roosters, and so I buy a lot of rooster fabrics. This particular one has a lot of colors in it. So it looks great, it's beautiful, but you don't want to have too busy of an accent fabric on it, especially if you wanted this to make your main focal piece. So I found some fabric that had all of the colors in it. Now, it doesn't do anything. Remember, it's too busy. There's a lot of zigzag lines. It's just taking you way off the road. So let's take a look at another one. There's a little bit of a peach color, a muted pink. Well, this does okay, but suddenly it makes all the other colors look a little dull to me. I don't know why. Now here's one that's a red polka dot. Now it matches the red of in there. Now this looks pretty good. If this was the only thing you could find, this would be a good choice. Now here's another one. Smaller checks. It's a little too light for me. It's not a bad choice, but I think the white polka dot is a little better. So let me show you what I finally wound up matching it with. This is a fabric basket. It has foam inside of it instead of cotton batting. But I did pick a checked fabric. The other one that I showed you was a really small check and very light in color. This is a very deep blue-red, so it helps to make all of the roosters really pop out. Here is a line of fabric I bought several years ago, and I think you can still get it. I purchased it from the Sewing and Quilting Center of Southern Utah in St. George. Now, when quilt fabric designers create a new line of fabric, they're always pretty smart about it because they make sure that that new line uses all of the same tones in their colors, and they use the same colors. So you'll see what's in this one, you'll see the same colors in these two, and so forth. The one thing that a fabric designer will always do, which really helps you, the customer, is they will pick a fabric that you can use as an accent on any one of their fabric lines or fabric selections. So let me show you what I made out of it. This is a little sewing machine placemat with pockets on it. And I used the fabric that had the scissors in it and the ones with the buttons because I really liked the way it looked. Now I didn't use the accent fabric that I just showed you because I really wanted to bring out this really dark pink. So I selected this other pink fabric that wasn't part of that line of fabric that I showed you. It has a very light print on it, and it works really well in bringing out the pinks in this fabric. Now this is a cross stitch project that I did many years ago, and I've never really done anything with it because I was always in a dilemma how to finish it off, because I like to use fabric on my hand stitching projects. So I thought about, I really want the blues to come out. And this is kind of a muted blue. Well, the first blue I pulled out because I thought it was really cool was this checked blue, but it's a little too cool. It's got a lot more blue in it than the lettering in here, which has more yellow. So you'll see that there is a difference, and you have to sort of train your eye. It takes time for you to begin to see all of this. So I looked for a bluish one that had this teal in it, this light teal. And this one does. It's got teal in the background, but then the darker blue. It still doesn't do anything for this because it's kind of busy. This is a very busy picture. So I decided I'm going to try to find this color. And the closest thing I had was this. Now this is a light teal. Now this isn't bad, but it still doesn't make this picture pop out. So I'm not a big fan of brown. But when I put this next to it, this really worked a lot. I thought this picture looks great. So whether you're going to frame it, or let's say make a pillow out of it, whatever you want to do, I would use this as a border. And if I was going to make this into a pillow, which I'm not going to, but let's say I would use this on some piping. And all of this works really well together. Here's just one more hand stitching project. This was needlepoint. So this kind of a sage green in the background, I made the ruffle out of it. And the peach on the lettering I used in the border. Here are some greens. And you'll have greens that have a lot of yellow in it and greens that have a lot of blue. For instance, these two right here have a lot of yellow. They also have another thing in common, there's white in it. Then there is this darker green that has a lot of blue, but there's really no white in it. The background even has a little bit of green in it. If you took these two fabrics and tried to create a project with it, they don't work together well. They kind of fight with each other. But if you put these two together, they work together better. Not perfect, but they do work together because the greens are the same tone. They have a lot of yellow in it, they're about the same shade, and the background is also white. If you were making something that you wanted to put trim on, you also want to make sure you've got the same tones in it because otherwise it's going to be a battle. Now this one has a little more yellow in it, and it just looks okay. I wouldn't use this color of rickrack on this. But because there is a lighter green in there, a more of a yellow green in it, this works really well. You go over to this one and they're having a fight over here. It's just not working. All right, so then there's this one. Let me get this out of the way. Now, this white one looks really good on this. It fades into the background here, and it also works on this one. Here's another trim. It's got green and white in it, and it just doesn't work. It's almost too busy for this fabric. But you put it over here, and it looks a lot better. Does not work well with this one at all because the tones clash with each other. Let's say you were making something that required a ruffle and you're using this fabric. It goes really well on this one, and I think it goes really well on this one here. But because there's so much white in here, that it doesn't really stand out. It's just sort of hanging there. Someone may notice the ruffle or may not. So here's some more white trim. There's even lace too. So you always want to use the same thought process no matter what you're working with. So this pom-pom fringe looks good. It just does okay on here. It doesn't really stand out enough because there's too much white here, too much white there. But it also goes really well with this one. So note to self, take your time with searching for fabrics. When you go into a quilt fabric shop, the ladies that work in there and even the men that work in there are very good at matching fabrics because all the quilts they have on the wall, they made, so they know how to match up their fabrics. So don't be afraid to ask. When I go into Joann's, not everybody working in there really knows anything about color. It used to be that they all did, but not so much anymore. They've been taught how to cut the fabric, but for most of them it just stops right there. So if you really want to get your fabrics well coordinated, I would go to a quilt fabric shop. I hope this tip of the week was helpful to you. Now, when you go below your YouTube screen, you're going to see links to these projects right here in case you're interested in making some of them. There'll also be other beginner sewing projects. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl, this is Manny, and this is Scotty. See you next time.